Questions. You know what's funny? In today's world, people upgrade their phones faster than they upgrade their minds. A small scratch on the screen, and we rush to the service center. Questions. But a big crack in our heart, we rush into another relationship. We don't take time to heal, we take time to deal. And my friends, that's where the problem begins. Questions. Because if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. So today, questions. Let's talk about something powerful. Stay alone until you heal. When a relationship ends or life breaks you, don't rush to replace what you lost. Sit down, reflect. Questions. Reconnect with yourself. Because if you don't sit with your loneliness will sit with you. Everywhere you go. Questions. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. We often mistake solitude for sadness, but solitude is sacred. It's the gym for your soul. Questions. It's where you build your strength again quietly. Remember, when a caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it looks lonely, but it's not dying, it's transforming. Some people say, questions, I'm fine, but their I'm fine sounds like a cry wearing makeup. Healing is not pretending you're okay. Healing is admitting that you're not and doing something about it. Cry. Questions. Journal. Pray. Meditate. Talk to God. Do what you need to do. Because ignoring pain doesn't heal it. Facing it does. Every person who hurts you teaches you something. Some teach you what love is. Questions. Others teach you what love isn't. Don't carry the bitterness. Carry the lesson. Bitterness keeps you trapped in the past. Lessons prepare you for the future. Questions. Being single doesn't mean you're lonely. It means you're brave enough to wait for what deserves you. Don't let society pressure you with timelines. Questions. Your healing is not a race, it's a process. Because love is not about finding someone perfect. It's about becoming whole enough to love perfectly. You don't need 100 likes on your photo. Questions. You need one genuine smile in your mirror. Don't seek attention, seek connection. Don't chase validation, chase growth. When you stop needing people to tell you your worth. Questions. You finally discover it yourself. Being alone is not being abandoned. It's being available for your own soul. It's the space where you rediscover your forgotten dreams. Questions. Rekindle your creativity and reconnect with the divine. You're never really alone when you're aligned with your purpose. Holding grudges is like holding hot coal. You burn yourself first. Questions. Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was right. It means you're tired of carrying their mistake in your heart. When you forgive, you free yourself. Don't fill your silence with distractions. Questions. Fill it with reflection. Learn to enjoy your own company. Take yourself on a walk, read, travel, create, serve. Because when you fall in love with peace, chaos starts to feel like a stranger. Questions. When you finally heal, you won't look for someone to complete you. You'll look for someone to complement you. You won't beg for attention. You'll share energy. Questions. You won't fear losing them. You'll value growing with them. Because healed people don't fall in love out of loneliness. They rise in love out of fullness. So, questions. My friends, stay alone until you heal. Stay single until your heart is peaceful. Stay patient until your soul stops shaking. Because when you heal, you don't chase. You attract. Questions. You don't beg. You bless. You don't break. You bloom. And one day when you meet the right person, you won't be looking for healing. You'll be ready for harmony. Questions. Stay alone until you heal, so that your next love story is not another pain chapter, but a peace poem. Thank you. Questions. In our fast-paced world, people change things faster than they change themselves. When a phone breaks, we rush to buy a new one. When a job becomes stressful, we jump to another one. Questions. And when a relationship hurts us, we try to replace the person before we even understand what went wrong. We live in a generation that fears emptiness. We fill every void instantly. But in doing so, questions, we rob ourselves of the most important phase of life, reflection. Imagine this. You're driving a car and suddenly the engine starts making a strange sound. What would you do? Questions. Would you turn the volume of your music up just to avoid hearing it? No, you'd stop, open the bonnet and check what's wrong. Because you know, if you keep driving with that noise, questions, you might damage the car completely. But that's exactly what many people do with their hearts. Instead of pausing when something feels off, we turn up the music of our lives. New people, questions, new distractions, new adventures. Just so we don't have to listen to what's broken inside. When a relationship ends, most people say, I need to move on. But my friends, questions, moving on doesn't mean moving fast. Healing is not about getting over someone. It's about getting back to yourself. It's about asking questions that we often avoid. Questions. What did I learn? What patterns am I repeating? Why did I tolerate what I did? What part of me needs healing? You see, heartbreaks, failures, questions, or losses are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to sit with your soul and listen. But we rarely RSVP to those invitations. We want to skip the pain and jump to pleasure. Questions. We want to erase the person from our mind instead of learning what that person came to teach us. And in doing so, we keep entering the same classroom with a different teacher. Questions. Learning the same painful lesson again and again. Let me share a simple example. There was a young man who went through 3 breakups in 3 years. Every time a relationship ended, within a month, questions, he found someone new. And every time it ended for the same reasons: lack of trust, insecurity, and emotional dependence. One day his friend asked him, questions, have you ever spent time alone after your breakup? He smiled and said, no, I can't stand being alone. His friend replied, maybe that's the problem. Questions. You're not finding love. You're running from loneliness. And that's the truth for many of us. We're not looking for love. We're looking for distractions. Questions. We think a new person will heal an old wound, but love is not medicine for pain. Love is a reflection of peace. Until you find peace within, every new person will trigger the same old pain. Questions. When you lose something or someone, take time to reflect, sit in silence, write your thoughts, cry if you need to, pray, journal, talk to yourself like you would to a friend. Questions. Reflection doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise, because in reflection, you see the truth behind your emotions. You realize that some of the pain came not just from others, questions, but from your own unhealed expectations. Have you noticed that when you break a bone, doctors don't immediately put weight on it? They give it rest, they let it heal slowly. If you rush it, questions, it'll break again. The same applies to your emotional wounds. If you don't give your heart time to rest and realign, it'll break again in the same way, just with a different person. Questions. Reflection gives you clarity, clarity gives you control, and control gives you peace. There's a beautiful story of a sculptor. Someone asked him, questions, how do you create such beautiful statues? He smiled and said, I don't create them. The statue is already inside the stone. Questions. I just remove what's unnecessary. That's what reflection does. It removes the unnecessary noise from your life so your true self can emerge. Questions. When you sit with your pain instead of escaping it, you discover your patterns. You realize what kind of love you were seeking, what kind of love you were giving. Questions. And what kind of love you actually deserve. Reflection turns wounds into wisdom. So many people rush to fill the gap that someone left behind, but they forget. If you rush to replace, questions, you'll only repeat. You'll keep meeting different faces but the same lesson, because life will keep giving you the same test until you learn it. You might say, but staying alone is hard. Yes, questions. It is, Healing isn't comfortable. It's courageous. Growth doesn't come from ease, it comes from awareness. When you sit with your pain, it speaks. And when it speaks, it teaches questions. Let me give you a practical example. When you delete a file on your computer, it doesn't immediately disappear. It goes to the recycle bin. You have to go and permanently delete it to free space. Questions. But imagine if you deleting files and never empty the recycle bin. One day your computer will slow down. That's what happens to our hearts. We keep adding new people, new experiences, questions, new goals, but we never clear out the emotional junk. Reflections like emptying your emotional recycle bin. It frees space for something new and meaningful. When you choose to reflect questions, you choose self-respect. You choose to say, I'm not afraid of being alone, I'm afraid of losing myself again. That's power. That's growth. So, my friends, don't rush into replacements. Questions. Don't run from your silence. Don't fill your loneliness with noise. Sit with yourself, reflect, heal. Questions. Because the person who pauses to understand themselves ends up creating a life of peace, not patterns. One day, when you've truly healed, you won't crave a replacement. Questions. You'll attract something better because you'll be better. And you'll look back and realize that staying alone for a while was not a delay. It was divine protection. Questions. It was life's way of saying, don't rush. I'm preparing you for something worth waiting for. So before you look for another person to hold, take a moment to hold yourself. Gently. Questions. Lovingly, patiently. That's how reflection turns your pain into power. Questions. In today's world, loneliness has become one of the most misunderstood emotions. The moment we feel alone, we panic, we grab our phones, scroll endlessly, send random messages, questions, or watch something just to avoid that heavy silence. We treat loneliness like a disease, something to escape from, when in truth, it's a season of transformation. Questions. Loneliness is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's life's way of saying, you're not being isolated. Questions. You're being prepared for something bigger. Let's understand this through a simple example. Have you ever seen a seed before it becomes a plant? Questions. Before that seed blooms into something beautiful, it must first be buried in the soil, alone, unseen, surrounded by darkness. No one claps for the seed in that stage. Questions. No one sees the quiet struggle beneath the ground, but that's where the magic happens. The seed breaks, it cracks open, and in that process of breaking, life begins. Questions. That breaking is not its destruction, it's its awakening. In the same way, when life isolates you, when people leave, when plans fail, questions, when everything feels silent, it's not because you are being punished, it's because you're being planted. Something beautiful is preparing to grow within you. Questions. But the soil of growth is always solitude. Think about the greatest transformations in life. The caterpillar turning into a butterfly, the night turning into dawn, the storm clearing into sunshine. Questions. Every transformation happens in silence, in solitude, in moments when the world seems still. Why do we think our lives should be any different? But I understand. Loneliness can feel heavy. Questions. The absence of people, the quiet of the night, the lack of conversation. It all starts to echo. You might look around and feel like everyone else is moving forward while you're stuck. Questions. But let me tell you this, some of the most powerful growth happens when it looks like nothing is happening at all. Just like a tree grows its deepest roots underground before it grows upward. Questions. Your spirit grows strongest in seasons of solitude. I remember once meeting a young woman after a session. She told me, I feel so lonely. I think God has forgotten me. I smiled and asked her questions. Have you ever been in an examination hall? She said, yes. I said, when does the teacher stay silent? Her eyes widened. During the test. And that's exactly it. When life goes silent, questions, it doesn't mean you've been abandoned. It means you're being tested, prepared, and refined. Loneliness teaches you what company cannot. It teaches you how to enjoy your own presence. Questions. How to listen to your own thoughts. How to befriend your soul. Because truthfully, if you can't enjoy being alone, how can you enjoy being with someone else? Questions. If you need someone else to fill your silence, you'll always depend on them for your happiness. But if you can dance in your solitude, laugh in your silence, questions, and grow in your stillness, you become unshakable. Many people think being alone means being unloved, questions. But it's actually in your alone time that you begin to understand real love. Not the one that comes from others, but the one that comes from within. The love that says, questions, I am enough, I am whole, I am in process. A look at nature. A tree doesn't compare its growth to another tree. It grows in its own time, in its own way, at its own pace. Questions. Your loneliness is not a delay, it's your season of rooting. Because what you build in private will sustain you in public. What you learn in solitude will prepare you for relationships, dreams, questions, and blessings that your old self could not handle. Sometimes we ask life, why did you take that person away? Why did this happen to me? But if you reflect deeply, questions, you'll realize that many times when people left your life, they made space for your growth. You grew stronger, wiser, more peaceful. Questions. You learned things about yourself that you never would have known if you were surrounded by noise. That's not punishment. That's preparation. There's a story about a man who loved gardening. Questions. One day he saw a butterfly struggling to come out of its cocoon. Feeling pity, he gently tore the cocoon open to help it. The butterfly came out, but it never flew, because in helping questions, he had removed its struggle. What he didn't know was that the butterfly needed to struggle in that tight space so that its wings could gain strength. Without that struggle, it was too weak to fly. Questions. Our loneliness works the same way. The discomfort, the silence, the stillness, they strengthen your wings. If you skip the lonely phase, questions, you might find yourself unprepared when life calls you to fly. You might not realize it now, but one day you'll look back at this season and say, questions, that's when I found myself. Because it's in loneliness that you rediscover your values, your purpose, your resilience. You start asking deeper questions. You start connecting with something divine within you. Something that doesn't need validation, attention, or applause. We live in a world where everyone wants to be seen, liked, and noticed. Questions. But solitude teaches you the opposite. It teaches you that it's okay not to be seen, because that's when you see yourself clearly. Questions. It teaches you that peace doesn't come from being surrounded by people. It comes from being surrounded by purpose. So the next time you feel lonely, don't curse that silence. Questions. Don't rush to escape it. Sit in it. Breathe in it. Let it teach you what business never could. Because loneliness, when embraced, turns into solitude, and solitude turns into strength. Remember, questions. Diamonds form under pressure, stars shine in darkness, and souls grow in silence. So if you're in a lonely phase right now, maybe, just maybe, life isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. Questions. You're not being left behind, you're being lifted up. The world might not see it yet, but something inside you is quietly evolving. Trust that process. One day, when the time is right, questions, that same silence that once scared you will become your source of peace. And when that happens, questions, you'll realize that being alone was never a curse. It was a sacred invitation to meet the most important person in your life, yourself. Questions. One of the biggest mistakes people make after being hurt, whether by love, loss, or life, is pretending they're fine when they're not. They wear a smile like a mask, post happy pictures. Questions. Tell the world, I've moved on, but inside their heart is still quietly bleeding. We've become experts at hiding pain, but amateurs at healing it. And here's the truth. Whatever you hide, questions, grows in the dark. Whatever you heal turns into light. When something painful happens, we're quick to say, I'm okay, because we fear being seen as weak. Questions. Society tells us that vulnerability is a flaw, that tears are a sign of defeat, that emotions make us fragile. Questions. But the strongest people in the world aren't those who never cry. They're the ones who cry, reflect, and rise. Questions. Healing begins the moment you stop running from your emotions and start walking through them. Imagine you get a deep cut on your arm. Questions. Would you just cover it with your sleeve and pretend it's not there? No, right? You'd clean it, treat it, bandage it, and give it time to heal. Because if you ignore it, it'll get infected. Questions. Emotional wounds are the same. The more you hide them, the deeper they infect your peace. Healing requires exposure. You have to bring your pain into the light. Questions. Many people think time heals everything, but time doesn't heal. Awareness does. You can sit with your pain for years and still be wounded if you never confront it. Healing isn't passive. Questions. It's an active choice. To face what hurt you, to understand why it did, and to release it with compassion. Time only helps if you spend it wisely. Reflecting, forgiving, learning. Questions. And rebuilding. There's a beautiful line that says, if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. And isn't that so true? Questions. We see it everywhere, people carrying old pain into new relationships, old betrayals into new friendships, old fears into new dreams. Questions. They start reacting to the present based on wounds from the past. It's not because they're bad people, it's because they never healed. They just hid. Questions. I once met a young man after a talk who said, I don't trust anyone anymore. Everyone betrays you eventually. I asked, who betrayed you? He said, my best friend. Questions. Years ago, I smiled and said, so you built a wall to protect yourself, right? He nodded proudly. I told him, questions. That wall is keeping the pain out, but it's also keeping love out. You see, when we hide behind emotional walls, we might feel safe, but we also stay stuck. Questions. Healing is not about building walls, it's about opening windows. Letting light in, letting air in, letting truth in. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. Questions. It means remembering it without reliving it. It means the memory no longer controls your mood, your choices, or your peace. Questions. Healing is when you can think of what broke you, and instead of bitterness, you feel wisdom. Instead of hate, you feel gratitude for the lesson. That's not weakness, that's power. Questions. But to reach that point, you have to stop hiding. You have to admit, I'm hurt. It's not self-pity, it's self-awareness. You can't heal from a wound you deny. Questions. When you speak your pain to a trusted friend, to a journal, to God, or even to yourself, you free your heart from carrying that silent burden. There's healing in honesty. Questions. Let me share a simple example. Imagine a glass filled with water. You can hold it easily for a few seconds. But what if you keep holding it for hours? Your hand will start to ache. Questions. Your arm will go numb, and eventually you'll drop it. The weight of the water doesn't change, but the longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. Pain works the same way. Questions. The longer you hold it in, the heavier it becomes. Healing means putting the glass down, not because it doesn't exist anymore, but because you've decided not to carry it all the time. Questions. Some people hide their pain behind business. They fill every minute of their day so they don't have to face themselves. They call it productivity, but it's really avoidance. Questions. Healing requires stillness. You can't hear your heart's whispers when you're constantly surrounded by noise. Take time to slow down. Take walks without your phone. Sit by yourself and breathe. Questions. Feel what you feel. Don't label it, don't judge it, just observe it. That's where healing begins. in awareness, not avoidance. Others hide their pain behind humor. Questions. They laugh loudly but cry silently. They joke about things they haven't truly processed. They think if they can make others laugh, maybe they can forget their own tears. Questions. But real healing isn't pretending to be okay. It's allowing yourself to not be okay for a while, knowing that's the path to becoming truly okay later. Healing is messy. Questions. It doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days you'll feel like you've made progress. Other days, it'll feel like you're back to square one. That's normal. Questions. Even physical wounds itch and hurt before they close. Emotional wounds are no different. Don't rush it. Be gentle with yourself. Growth is not a race, it's a rhythm. And remember, questions. Healing doesn't mean isolation. You can heal while being surrounded by love. From family, friends, mentors, or even spiritual guidance. Questions. You just have to make sure that the people you surround yourself with nurture your peace, not your pain. Choose environments that encourage openness, not pretense. One day when you truly heal, questions, you'll notice a shift. The same things that once triggered you will no longer control you. The memories that once brought tears will bring wisdom. Questions. You'll be able to talk about your pain without feeling broken. You'll realize that healing doesn't erase your story, it refines it. The scars remain, but they no longer hurt. Questions, they just remind you of how far you've come. So don't hide behind smiles, distractions, or denial. Heal. Cry if you need to, write if you must, rest if you have to. Do whatever your soul needs. Questions. Because pretending to be fine is exhausting, but healing is freeing. And the moment you choose to face your pain with courage, questions, you stop being a victim of your past and become the author of your future. You deserve that peace. You deserve that freedom. You deserve to heal, not to hide. Questions. When life hurts us, our first instinct is to protect ourselves by building walls made of bitterness. We replay what happened, what they said, what they did, and how unfair it all felt. Questions. We tell ourselves, I'll never trust again, or I'll never love again. But in doing so, we don't just protect ourselves from pain, we also block ourselves from growth. Questions. Every painful experience in life carries two gifts, a lesson and a wound. The lesson helps you grow. The wound reminds you that you're human. Questions. The problem begins when we hold on to the wound and throw away the lesson. Think of it this way. When you touch a flame by mistake, you feel pain. Questions. But the purpose of the pain isn't to make you hate fire forever. It's to remind you to handle fire carefully next time. The lesson is meant to guide you, not harden you. In life, it's the same. Questions. Every heartbreak, betrayal, or failure burns for a reason. Not to destroy you, but to awaken wisdom inside you. Let's take a simple example from everyday life. Questions. Imagine you lend money to a friend out of kindness, and they never return it. You feel hurt, used, and disappointed. The bitterness inside you whispers. Questions. Never help anyone again. But the lesson says help, but with awareness. Give what you can afford to lose. Set boundaries. Bitterness closes your heart, lessons refine it. Questions. The wise person doesn't stop giving, they start giving smarter. Bitterness is heavy. It drains your energy, poisons your peace, and builds invisible walls between you and happiness. Questions. It makes you carry the past like a backpack filled with stones. The more you carry it, the slower you move. But learning the lesson is like taking those stones out, one by one. Questions. And building a bridge instead. The same pain that once weighed you down starts leading you forward. I once met a woman who said, I hate love. Every time I open my heart, I get hurt. I asked her, questions, do you hate love or do you hate pain? She paused. Then I told her, love didn't hurt you. The wrong person did. Questions. Don't let a bad experience convince you that a beautiful emotion is your enemy. That's what bitterness does. It paints everything with one color. If one person betrayed you, questions, you start believing everyone will. If one job disappointed you, you assume every opportunity will. But life doesn't repeat. We do until we learn the lesson. When you learn the lesson, questions, your perspective changes. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That single shift in thinking transforms pain into power. Questions. Because every painful experience carries wisdom you couldn't learn through comfort. Growth rarely comes from ease. It comes from the moments that stretched your soul, that made you question questions, that forced you to let go of who you were to become who you're meant to be. Let's talk about forgiveness for a moment. Many people misunderstand it. Questions. They think forgiving someone means approving of what they did. No. Forgiveness simply means choosing peace over poison. It's saying, questions, I'm done letting your actions control my emotions. It's not about them, it's about you. When you forgive, you're not saying, it's okay. You're saying, questions, I deserve peace. Bitterness locks you in the past. Forgiveness frees you for the future. There's a story of two monks walking through a forest. Questions. They come across a woman struggling to cross a muddy path. One monk carries her across, sets her down, and continues walking. Hours later, the other monk, visibly upset, says, questions. Why did you carry that woman? We're not supposed to touch women. The first monk smiles and says, I put her down hours ago. Questions. Why are you still carrying her? That's what bitterness does. It makes us carry people, moments, and memories long after they've left. Learning the lesson means putting them down. Questions. Not out of hatred, but out of wisdom. Every situation that hurt you was a teacher in disguise. That heartbreak taught you what kind of love you deserve. Questions. That betrayal taught you the importance of boundaries. That rejection taught you that not everything you lose is a loss. That failure taught you resilience. Questions. Life's greatest wisdom often comes wrapped in pain. The question is, will you unwrap it or will you resent it? It's easy to let bitterness take over because bitterness feels like control. Questions. It feels like strength. You tell yourself, I don't care anymore, but deep down, you do. Bitterness is just pain wearing armor. It looks strong, but it's still fragile inside. Questions. Real strength comes from learning the lesson and moving on with grace. With no hatred in your heart, no revenge in your mind, and no poison in your soul. Look at nature. After a storm, questions, the sky doesn't stay angry. The rain clears, the sun returns, and everything starts growing again. Nature doesn't hold grudges. It renews itself. We must learn to do the same. Questions. You can't bloom if you're still watering your weeds of resentment. And here's something powerful. When you truly learn the lesson, you realize that pain was your greatest teacher. Questions. The person who betrayed you taught you honesty. The person who ignored you taught you self-respect. The person who left taught you independence. The person who broke you taught you strength. Questions. When you view pain through this lens, you stop being a victim of it. You become the student of it. Remember, life will keep sending you the same lesson until you learn it. Questions. If you keep meeting the same type of people, facing the same challenges, or ending up in the same emotional spaces, that's not bad luck. That's life repeating the class until you pass. Questions. But once you truly learn, you'll notice how everything changes. You'll stop attracting chaos because your soul no longer needs that lesson. So, my friend, questions. Don't let bitterness be the story you tell yourself. Don't let one dark chapter define your entire book. Learn the lesson. Thank the experience. Not for the pain, questions, but for the growth it brought you. Then close that chapter gently and move forward with an open heart. Because the moment you stop resenting your past and start respecting its lessons, questions, you become unstoppable. Bitterness is heavy, wisdom is light. Choose to travel light. Learn the lesson, release the rest, and walk toward your peace, wiser, softer, and stronger than ever before. Questions. In a world that glorifies relationships and makes being single look like a flaw, it takes courage to say, I'm single and I'm happy. Society teaches us to chase companionship questions, but not contentment. We're told that being in love means you've made it, and being alone means you've failed. But the truth is, questions. There's nothing sad about being single. What's sad is forgetting your own worth while trying to prove it to someone else. Being single doesn't mean you're broken. Questions. It means you're strong enough to wait for what deserves you. Think about this. We upgrade our phones, our homes, even our wardrobes. But how often do we upgrade ourselves? Questions. Most people spend their single phase wishing for love instead of using that time to become love. They forget that singleness isn't a punishment, it's preparation. Questions. It's that sacred season when life gives you a chance to rediscover who you are without the noise of validation or the pressure of pleasing someone else. Questions. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness says, I need someone to fill this emptiness. Solitude says, I am whole. Questions. Even when I'm alone. The best relationships don't come from two incomplete people trying to fix each other. They come from two complete souls who choose to share their wholeness. Questions. If you're single, don't rush to change your status. Change your mindset. Because the single phase is not a waiting room, it's a classroom. It's where you learn self-love, self-respect, questions, and self-worth. I once met a young woman after a seminar who said, I feel like everyone around me is in a relationship. My friends are engaged and I'm here, alone. I smiled and asked questions. Do you know what's worse than being alone? She looked at me puzzled. I said, being with someone who makes you feel alone. She smiled, tears in her eyes. You see, questions. Sometimes we're so afraid of being single that we settle for half love, effort, half happiness. Questions. We'd rather have something than nothing. But that something often costs us our peace. It's better to walk alone in peace than with someone who constantly makes you doubt your worth. Questions. Being single gives you the space to understand what kind of love you actually need, not what the world tells you to want. It teaches you boundaries. It teaches you patience. Questions. It teaches you how to sit with yourself without fear. And once you can sit comfortably with your own company, you stop tolerating relationships that disturb your peace. Questions. Here's something many people forget. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you treat yourself poorly, questions, you'll accept poor treatment from others. If you respect yourself, you'll attract respect. If you love yourself deeply, you'll never beg for crumbs of attention. Questions. Your energy teaches people how to treat you. So use your single phase to fall madly, wildly, deeply in love with you. Imagine this, you buy a house. Before moving in, questions, you want to decorate it beautifully. But what if you bring in broken furniture, messy boxes, and cluttered junk from your old place? The new house will never feel like home. Questions. That's what we do when we jump from one relationship to another without healing. We bring our old pain into a new space and wonder why it feels heavy. Questions. Being single gives you the time to unpack, to throw away what doesn't serve you and design your inner world the way you want. Another thing people often overlook is the beauty of freedom. Questions. Being single means you have the freedom to travel, to grow, to learn, to chase dreams, and to build without compromise. Questions. You get to wake up every morning and make choices that serve you, not out of obligation but out of passion. This isn't selfish, it's sacred. Because when you learn to live fully as yourself, questions, you become someone who doesn't depend on others to feel alive. There's a misconception that being single means something is missing. but nothing is missing. You are whole as you are. Questions. The idea that someone else has to complete you is a lie. You are never half a soul waiting for another half. You are a full being capable of love, joy, and purpose, even without a partner. Questions. The right person won't complete you, they'll complement the completeness you already built within yourself. Let's take an example from nature. Questions. Have you ever seen a tree rushing to grow just because another tree beside it started blooming earlier? Of course not. Each tree grows at its own pace, in its own season. Some bloom early, some late. Questions. But each one is beautiful in its own time. Your season of love will come, but let it come naturally. Don't force it. Don't chase it. Don't compare your journey to others. Questions. The right love will never require you to shrink, rush, or prove. It will meet you when you are ready, not when you are desperate. Being single also teaches you to see love differently. Questions. It shows you that love is not just romance. It's friendship, family, kindness, purpose, service, and passion. When you open your heart to these forms of love, questions, you realize you're surrounded by it every day. You start living from abundance instead of lack. You stop saying, I'm missing love, and start saying, I'm becoming love. But yes, questions. Being single can feel lonely sometimes, especially when everyone around you seems happy and coupled. In those moments, remind yourself that solitude isn't emptiness. It's space. Questions. And space is where growth happens. Flowers need space to bloom. Music needs pauses to sound beautiful. Even the universe itself began in emptiness before expanding into everything. Questions. You're alone. Time isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your becoming. So instead of rushing to find love, spend time becoming someone who is loved. Questions. Instead of looking for the one, focus on being the one who's kind, peaceful, grounded, and whole. Because when you truly become that version of yourself, questions, you won't have to chase love. Love will find you, recognize you, and stay. Remember this, being single is not about waiting for someone. It's about growing into someone. Questions. Someone who knows their worth so deeply that when love comes, it feels like an addition, not a rescue. Someone who can say, I am not lonely, I am preparing. So, wear your singleness with pride. Questions. Use this time to build, to heal, to travel, to dream, to laugh without restraint, and to grow without fear. Because when the right person comes, questions, you won't need them to fill your emptiness. You'll invite them to share your fullness. Be single but not broken. Be single but strong. Be single but shining. Because one day, questions, when you meet someone who's whole too, your love won't be a search for completion. It will be a celebration of two complete souls walking side by side, free and full of peace.